Welcome back to the Eric Krown Crypto channel, wishing you a happy, healthy start to this nice new week of new opportunities, of which Bitcoin opened up on the pullback that we're looking for coming into the end of last Friday. And what does that mean for the next probably couple days to come? And then, of course, a revisiting of the higher term timeframes here, as I want to follow up on one of the major signals that has been pretty damn good thus far of calling macro cycle bottoms as it draws kind of closer and closer right here. Anyways, with that in mind, I want to once again point out that we have a sale going on for the next few days. As always, I won't go through the full rigmarole on this, but please watch the promotional videos that accompany any one of the programs that you might be considering, because they're going to explain who they're for, who they're not for, what to expect, so that you can make a proper decision for yourself. It's very, very likely that if you're on the edge with especially these main programs right here, it's probably not going to be a good fit, because they take a lot of time commitment and also financial commitment as well. So it's, it's going to require a lot from you, essentially. Just like with anything, it's like, what you put in is what you get out, of course. All right, sweet. So what else? Yes, Instagram, I've been doing a lot of updates there, short form, and also kind of treating that as like the live streams, or kind of like an interlude for them, as I've kind of stopped doing them while price action is more or less boring, to be quite frank. And there's a link in the description below as well for that exactly. All right, sweet. So let's start it off right on over here with CME. As always, on Monday and Tuesday, I favor this chart over spot price action. Here was the rejection at the range highs for the medium term timeframes. There was no closure above 22.3, thus meaning no continuation to the 23.5 target, which at some point, yes, I do think that will actually get hit, but still sort of same criteria needed for that to be the main target for the short term. Until then, however, what do we have? Well, we have a pullback, obviously, but here's the thing. When we go and reference 4-hour BBWP, we can see very obviously that this is a corrective move. So with that in mind, or corrective with the overall short-term time frame trend in mind, does imply that this pullback, hopefully for the Boolah's sakes, sets in a higher low. On top of that, to kind of corroborate that story, we do see over here on the short-term timeframes, if I can go over to CME, there we go. 12-hour stochastic momentum is actually about to turn down with any sort of a closure today, midday, below 21,150. So far, so good. That has another 3 hours, 7 minutes, and 48 seconds left to go, by the way. 4-hour is also going to be showing downside pressure as long as Bitcoin is closing below 21.5. So kind of coming in around that same pivot, actually. So that would be worth knowing. And then the hourly is going to be showing upside if Bitcoin closes above about 20,340, which, very, very short-term time frames like this are not that important for the overall move, but kind of fitting that within the context of the equations that we're seeing right now, it does look to me like Bitcoin probably grinds out a little bit lower. And then the real question is, does Bitcoin put in a higher low or not? If it does, this starts to take on one of the only patterns that I'll ever call out, the only patterns that I actually happen to give a fuck, and that would be an ascending triangle. I think it's a little bit easier seeing perhaps on spot price action, but in this case right here, when I throw it back on my drawing tools, we will notice that the 618 Fibonacci retracement is coming in a little bit lower than 20,000 bucks. And for reference, we are right at the 0.5 right here at 20,370 or so. That was kind of the same area that we gave out last week alongside the 382, which was just below 21. Ultimately, what the Boolahs would like to see here is a higher low. So where does that hopium start to get nuked, for lack of a better term? Well, in this case, we can actually move up this point of failure up a little bit, and that would be with any sort of a 4-hour time frame closure. I would say at minimum below 19,700. Below there, very likely going to retest the lows, probably another bounce somewhere around the lows, but probably lower than that over time. Until then, however, as long as Bitcoin's above that region, I would consider that a potential higher low in the making. And this was one of the things that my mentor actually quite liked as far as a reversal pattern with kind of 3 spike lows. We got spike 1, spike 2, and then spike 3 over here. Bit of an inverted head and shoulders as well, but it's sloppy, so it doesn't actually fulfill the full-on criteria for that. But ultimately, a pretty strong reversal pattern, at least for that time frame. Still contingent upon trading above the range highs, which would be 22,300 or so. Or closing above there, I should say. And then, yes, that 23.5 target would be relevant. Realistically, higher targets than that would start to populate, actually, probably more close to 25 if I had to take a shot at it right now. Other than that, though, what else should I call out here? You will have a good indication of perhaps a short-term reversal here if you do see a 4-hour closure, back above about 21.5. I think that's where a lot of the short-term time frame momentum pivots were. Yeah, that's where the 4-hour is. That's where the 12 12 hour was kind of around as well. Yeah, 12 150, a little bit lower than that actually. And then the 6 hour I think is also around that, or actually much higher than that region, 230. So ultimately probably a bit of sideways and down here. And then the question is Bitcoin set in a higher low or not? As it kind of works off this corrective signal that we do see on a 4 hour BBWP. Other than that, should I call out this over here? Funding rates on the hourly, or funding rates on the daily, actually very, very small. I mean, these are just not even worth calling out right now, but very small negative, and hourly is even smaller negative right here. So I would not put too much faith into this at this moment in time. We haven't really, I mean, we have seen, you know, short-term moves based upon this even in the last couple of weeks, but they just haven't been like big enough to really make much out of. So other than that, what else should we get into? I wanted to get into the higher term time frame look now. So first and foremost, I want to call out this signal over here, and then some of the corroborating signals that do make me think, that, you know, a bit of a spike into this region right here, and then a reverse out of there is actually is certainly in the cards. Again, that'd be completely negated below that 19.7 region, or especially 19.5 on even a very low term time frame. But in this case, what I want to bring back is this chart over here. Well, that doesn't really make much sense when I zoom it in like that, but it is the pi cycle bottom indicator chart. And basically, what has this chart done? Well, it's called macro cycle tops, as you can see, with this indicator, and also macro cycle bottoms pretty damn well. Now, I would like to point out 2 points of contingencies here. The first would be, obviously, it called the highs over here in April 2021, and then Bitcoin, you know, it did trade a little bit higher than that, to be fair, on a closing basis, about 15%. Like that's significant, to be fair. But ultimately, selling within this region, pretty fucking good in hindsight regardless. Same thing over here, actually in 2014 on this macro cycle low, yes, this one was actually perfect as well. All right, there we go. So apologies. A lot of people always bring up, so does that mean that the bear market started in April of 2021? You can't tell me that you have a new all-time high by 15% in a bear market. Like, what's the point of calling it a bear market if you're just going to make new highs? I don't get it. I'm sorry. You know, these are really just like terms of endearments anyways. You know, at the end of the day, price action is price action, no matter what you call it. So cool. Anyways, my point is that while this has not been too well tested on the lows, it's getting extremely close to calling another pi cycle low, actually. So the way that it's done is that when these moving averages cross over here and over here, as you can see, that is when the indicator fires off an official signal. And well, so far so good for the past 2 macro iterations. There have been obviously more macro cycles than that, 3 actually, going back on over to 2011. We don't see a signal over here. That's, well, mostly due because, you know, Bitcoin was too young to really populate that. But here's the thing, as I kind of zoom in right here, these moving averages they are very fucking close. This is going to happen this week, the only way that doesn't happen is if Bitcoin rallies up like basically north of $30,000 in the next 48 hours, which I don't think is happening. I don't think Bitcoin's going anywhere near $30,000 for anytime soon, to be quite honest with you. But ultimately, if this does fire off, which again, I'm going to zoom in right here, which could happen as soon as, you know, I kind of drew some regressions, like just kind of eyeballing it myself. I mean, you know, theoretically, maybe even tomorrow, probably Wednesday, but very, very likely this week. Will that actually signal the next macro low? Well, like I said, so far so good, but even if it does signal a macro low, that doesn't mean that Bitcoin just reverses like immediately out of these regions. As you can see from the last one, for example, Bitcoin still, you know, spent about 3 months going sideways here before it really got going. And the one before that was significantly longer. In fact, you know, you had this one coming in from January 2015. Bitcoin did not reverse out of the range in like an extraordinary fashion until November 2015. So that's basically a year later. So not happening anytime soon, which is why I do still say that in my opinion, the best case scenario, like the best case scenario for Bitcoin is going sideways, basically between like, you know, maybe a little bit lower, like $16,000 in kind of around that $23,500 region, or maybe even 25 for like, if Bitcoin did that for the next 4 to 6 months, that would look amazing. That would look absolutely amazing for a macro low. But we'll just leave that right there. Anyways, the other few things that do make me consider that Bitcoin's a little bit more likely to trade north of this range first before potentially heading lower later. Again, I do still hold on my long-term thoughts that generally speaking, I don't think that the lows are actually in, but it doesn't mean that I think that things are going to go significantly lower. Basically, my ideas are this, from summarizing yesterday's video for the macro, which by the way is still there and available for you and still very much relevant, is this. Hey, Bitcoin basically either bottom, in my opinion, either bottoms kind of where we're at right now, maybe a little bit lower, like as low as $15,500, let's say. If that doesn't work, I strongly believe it's not going to be 14,000, 12,000, 10,000, whatever the fuck people are saying right now. It's going to be like $5,000 or $6,000. It's going to be like really, 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 really nasty. Just personal opinion. Anyways, yes, so if we go back on over here, the signal is still very much valid, still very much available. This was the daily stochastic momentum signal that we've been following on CME, fired off on the actual low thus far in late June, and it is still viable as long as the daily stochastic momentum direction is maintained, which that will be maintained as long as Bitcoin is closing on a daily closing basis above 18,800. The reason why it's relevant, or the reason why I continue to call it out, is because this signal, which the signal is anytime the daily stochastic has gotten down to this green horizontal bar and then bounced from it, has produced on average a historical bounce of just under 31%, and typically happens over the course of about 2 weeks on average till the next high. There's some good variance in this. We've seen as low as 18%, or sorry, we've seen as low as 13%. We've seen as high as like 50%, and thus far from the current low to our current high, we've seen like 22%. Which is kind of reasonable, to be fair. And how long did that take, though? Well, from the signal given, which was right here, to that high, 7 days. So that would certainly be on the lower end of that. We have seen as low as 3 days before, definitely on the outlier side, though. All the other ones are double digits, actually. So that would be a little bit more on the outlier side. So, if Boo laws are going to pull through here, we probably get a bit of a short-term spike down, kind of what we're seeing right now. And then you'd be looking for a quick reversal into, today, maybe Tuesday, something like that, and then back up and maybe play out that move. But ultimately, I also wanted to talk about this as well. The 5-day stochastic momentum oscillator has also officially crossed the upside, kind of. I'd want to see another close over close confirming this, which will be consistent as long as Bitcoin's above 19,100. So that is going to be a very important pivot for the higher term timeframes. But basically, as long as that remains with upside curvature, this has also been a pretty damn good signal historically speaking. This one's been actually a little bit more well tested in comparison to the last one. But anytime we've seen the 5-day get down to this green horizontal bar, it's only really happened like 6-7 times now. The bounce from there has been pretty significant, actually, on average about 58.25% over the course of about, almost a month, basically. Now, this one would actually start back from over here, but, so far, so good. Anyways, I think that's a good place for me to leave off on this one. I should probably shill Bybit once again. Bybit, they've got their, what is it? Bybit, amazing, and fired. Bybit, they have their promotion going on. It's actually a pretty good promotion. I keep on forgetting about it, but the 0% on maker fees, basically meaning that you don't pay any fees on limit orders if you use the link in the description below. Other than that, it's a great place to get wrecked on, good liquidity, and of course, have a good strategy. Nothing's going to compensate for that, of course. So if you don't already have that, I would not suggest left trading, in fact. Anyways, with that said, wishing you well as always. Take care, much love, and see you hopefully soon.